just taking people that were caught red-handed coming in illegally and then just in-processed rather than being deported?
Gentleman's out of time, but you may answer the question.
I am not, Congressman. I suspect that would have been our sister agency, as you said.
The Border Patrol.
Right, yeah.
But then you had ICE people backing them up. You know you've got a lot of ICE folks there.
Oh, if there were drugs on them, and we had our hands on them, we wouldn't have let them go.
Well, they were never captured. That's the point. But anyway, it's now on your radar, and it really needs to be dealt with, and I appreciate the chairman's indulgence. Thank you.
The gentleman from Texas yields back. Director, I want to thank you for your patience this morning. I'm last. I'm going to bounce to a couple of different topics. If it's confusing, it's only because of the question.
Yeah.
We're going to start with visas and schools. Would it be helpful to your student visa fraud enforcement efforts if all schools that accept foreign students were required to be accredited?
It makes a difference, sir, of course. It makes a difference to have accredited institutions that will be partners with us in our efforts to keep track of students who are coming in from foreign countries.
How much of an issue has it been, or have you seen these kind of visa mills where you bring students here with no expectation that they actually pursue an education?
Well, we had a tremendous case announced. That I was there at the press conference with my counterpart, with my former colleague, Paul Fishman, the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey, where we brought down a university that was just an academic mill. Very proud of that work done by our Homeland Security investigation agents who had a elaborate undercover operation going on, and there were multiple, 18, 19, for example, for some reason is coming to mind, of people that were involved in that. It's a matter we take great interest in and focus our investigations on.
Well, I'm going to ask you about two reports, and then you can tell me whether the reporting is accurate, and if so, if there's an explanation what that may be. There's a report that you have asked for less money for alien detention and less money for fugitive operations. Is it true that your request was for less money, and if so, why?
My request?
Yes, ma'am.
I think the Department of Homeland Security submits a broad request for all agencies. Obviously, they consult with all of us. But I would not have asked for less money in those areas.
Okay. There's another report that at least in previous years, occasionally, ICE attorneys would not appear for hearings in front of judges. And that probably strikes you and I as being unusual, that the government attorney would not be there. Have you heard that? Was it a practice? Is it still a practice?
That is an issue that I am sure would have come to my attention if it were in any way systemic. Has one missed a hearing here or there? I wouldn't be apprised of that. But I assure you that I have met so many of these attorneys, I can't imagine that being a practice and a report that's really valid. I'm not familiar with the report you're talking about, but our lawyers wouldn't just ignore a court setting.
Well, that's why I ask, and I make no presumptions as to the validity of that report. But if you could have someone, not yourself, but just somebody check to see whether or not that is currently an issue or was an issue in the past. It is hard for me to understand how the government can be represented if the attorney doesn't show up, but you would have that same feeling because you had the same job. So. Last two issues, sanctuary cities. When I go back home, and I suppose it's true for Johnny in Texas, it is really hard for the people we represent to understand, particularly in light of what they perceive to be a federal government that is willing to get involved in certain state and local issues, not being as animated about jurisdictions that consider themselves sanctuary cities. So I heard you say you're working on it. Other than the power of persuasion, which may or may not work, what tools do you need to be able to get local jurisdictions to cooperate?
Well, I know that I'm going to have to tout our success, though, Congressman, with respect to the 17 of the 25 that I targeted, the 25 that have the most impact on our declined detainers. We have 17 working in a very robust manner with us. So the Secretary did something right in his communications with local law enforcement in different places that he went to as the deputy, and myself personally did. But I believe our message is getting through. I think that's an indication of our message getting through, that there are real problems, not the least of which is the safety of our officers who are going out there to make apprehensions because we couldn't get the cooperation of a local jail to turn over folks. But we continue in our work. I think there's some communities that I'm just not sure we're ever going to get to the point we need to get to, but we're going to keep trying, all of us. I have that specific instruction from the Secretary.
All right, last question. Zavadas. There are not that many things on Capitol Hill that are bipartisan, but dealing with the decision in Zavadas would be one of them. I've had a number of my friends on the other side of the aisle have constituents impacted by that Supreme Court decision. What can we do, or what can you and I and you and Congress do together? It is impossible to explain to constituents why in some instances countries who benefit from foreign aid from us will not accept their foreign nationals back. It is just hard to explain that. So what do we need to do to get the State Department more fully engaged, so it's not you and me answering the question, because it's really up to them? So what can Congress do about Zavadas?
Okay, well, I see two different issues here. One is the work with these countries that are not taking their people back, and the other one is the decision that compels us to release people. Sir, I've read that decision. I don't know if you have. It is very legal in nature, but the bottom line there is the constitutional concerns of holding somebody indefinitely when there is little chance that we're going to be able to return them to their countries. You're right. None of our people like doing that, and it hurts us in our heart of hearts that is the deal. But I am happy to consider and work with you any options that you have with respect to those countries. I am working diligently with Michelle Bond, the Chief of Consular Affairs. She has really taken a personal interest and made a commitment to me that we're going to take a look at each one of these countries and do what we can. The world is a complicated place, as you know, and I would not put myself in the shoes of the Department of State to know all the ramifications of a sanctions decision, for example, against a country with whom our relationship is complex, to say the least. And I don't know all those ramifications. All I know is that I have a difficult problem to deal with, and she is working with me at Department of State to try to get to a better place than we are today.
Well, with the indulgence of my friend from California, because this is a bipartisan issue, Congresswoman Lofgren and I have discussed it. Congressman Courtney has an issue. Congressman Welch on the other side of the aisle. What is the dominant explanation given from countries who will not accept their nationals? But what is their excuse for not doing so?
Quite frankly, in many instances, there is no explanation. Some of the factors are instability of a country. I mean, what do we do with Syrians? You know, returning them to their country. That country is in the throes of terrible turmoil. So often it's instability. It's a claim that our proof of citizenship is not sufficient, even though we believe it is. It's the lack of records and the lack of records kept by certain governments, that they just don't value record keeping the way we do, and so establishing citizenship becomes a problem. It's a varied picture of things that are brought up to us as to why they will not accept their people back.
All right, I would ask my friend from California if he had any concluding remarks. We want to, on behalf of all of us, thank you for your service and for your testimony today. And I guess members will have 5 legislative days to submit questions to the record. And with that, we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
How are you? Good to see you. I think if you need a long term, nice to meet you.